Let me tell you a hard truth that most people ignore. The louder you are, the less they listen. The more you talk, the more invisible you become. In a world where everyone's fighting to be heard, your silence could be the most powerful message you ever send. We grow up believing that influence comes from volume, that if we can say more, post more, shout more, we'll finally get noticed. We think the fastest way to be relevant is to be loud, but that's not how power works. Real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. It walks into the room quietly and still shifts the energy. I remember when I first started speaking publicly, I had this idea that I needed to fill every second with words. If I paused, even for a moment, I thought I'd lose attention. But over time, I realized something. People don't remember everything you say. They remember how you made them feel. And what creates feeling isn't noise, it's presence. Silence isn't weakness, it's precision. You don't need more words, you need more meaning. You've been in these rooms before, haven't you? A work meeting, a dinner party, a networking event, and suddenly you feel this pressure, I should say something smart. So you talk, you ramble, you try to sound clever or witty or confident, but then you walk away feeling worse, like you overdid it. Like your words had no weight. You weren't heard. You were just noise in the background. Why? Because we're taught to speak before we've learned to listen. Let me shift your mindset right now. You don't have to be the most interesting person in the room. You need to be the most interested. The people who leave a lasting impression, they don't dominate conversations. They ask the right questions. They make people feel seen. They listen deeply. And that skill, that art of listening with full presence, that's what builds real connection. That's what makes your words matter when you finally choose to speak. I'll give you a quick story. There's a Zen tale of a student who asks his teacher, "What's the secret to wisdom?" The teacher looks him in the eye and says, "Listen." The student asks again, "No, really, what's the secret to wisdom?" The teacher replies again, "Listen." Frustrated, the student says, "Why won't you tell me?" The teacher smiles and says, "If you had really listened, you wouldn't need more words. The wisdom is already there, you just have to hear it." Here's what happens when you start practicing the power of less. The less you say, the more your words will carry. The less you react, the more control you'll command. The less you complain, the more people will lean in when you speak. The less you chase, the more you'll attract. The less you over-explain, the more respect you gain. The less noise, the more clarity. We live in a world obsessed with volume, but don't confuse volume with value. Don't confuse chatter with connection. Don't confuse attention with meaning. If you want to shift your energy in any room, here's the move. Ask a powerful question. Pause. Really listen. Try this instead of, "How was your day?" which everyone hears 1,000 times and answers with fine. Ask, "What's something you've been thinking about all week? What's something that surprised you recently? What's one thing that brought you peace this week?" Watch the difference in their face. Watch the conversation evolve. Watch how they open up because you gave them space, not just sound. We overspeak when we're insecure. We over-explain when we don't trust our value. We overcompensate because we fear being forgotten. But when you know who you are, you don't need to fill the silence. You become the silence that speaks. If someone enters a room and immediately starts complaining about their boss, their commute, their stress, what happens? The mood drops, the room tightens, energy shifts. Even if people nod and sympathize, they now associate that person with negativity. But imagine you walk in and say, "You know what, today was a tough day, but I'm grateful I made it through." Or, "This week has been wild, but I had a moment yesterday that reminded me how far I've come." Now you've sparked a shift. Now you've created emotional space. Now you've elevated the entire room. And guess what? People remember the ones who make them feel lighter, not heavier. Let me drop one more scientific truth here. A Harvard study found that people retain only 17-25% of what they hear. That means if you talk for 10 minutes straight, most of it gets lost. But when you speak with intention, one sentence, one story, one insight, that's what they remember. So here's your challenge. Before any conversation with a friend, a coworker, your partner, ask yourself, what's the one thing I want them to walk away with? Get clear on that. Speak it simply. Then stop talking. Let your silence carry the rest. Now, let me ask you something. What if your silence is the thing that finally gets you heard? What if your stillness is the thing that commands respect? What if you've been talking too much just to avoid feeling like you're not enough? The next time you enter a room, try being the calmest presence in it. The next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, just smile and stay quiet. The next time you feel insecure, remind yourself the deepest waters are the most still. And here's your first step. In the comments below, I want you to answer this. What's one situation where you know you could speak less and mean more? Don't just scroll, reflect. If this message landed for you, like this video, subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this journey. And thank you truly for being here. You're not just watching a video, you're building your identity. You're rising. Let's keep growing together. Here's the truth. No one wants to admit you're not tired. You're carrying too much that no longer belongs to you. You're not confused. You're just still trying to make sense of what already ended. You're not stuck. You're holding on to something that's already left you emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And that's the lesson no one taught us growing up. Let go or be dragged. Dragged emotionally, dragged mentally, dragged into places you were never meant to stay. Think about it. How many times have you held on to someone or something far longer than you should have? That relationship that was clearly misaligned, but you kept justifying it. That friend who repeatedly crossed your boundaries, but you kept forgiving them. That job you outgrew years ago, but you stayed for the paycheck, the title, the fear. We don't let go because we're weak. We don't let go because we've convinced ourselves that holding on is strength, that loyalty means staying, that love means enduring. But let me offer a reframe. Letting go is not giving up. Letting go is refusing to carry what's not yours anymore. Letting go is choosing peace over performance. Letting go is trusting that your future needs space, not baggage. You know the feeling you wake up with a weight on your chest. You open your phone, hoping for a message that never comes. You replay old conversations in your head, imagining how you could have changed the ending. But here's the painful truth. No amount of replay will rewrite the past. No amount of overthinking will fix what broke itself. No amount of waiting will bring back what was never meant to stay. You're not healing by holding on. You're just bleeding slower. There's a Zen story I love. Two monks are walking together. They come across a woman struggling to cross a river. One monk picks her up, carries her across, and sets her down safely. They continue their journey in silence. Hours later, the other monk says, "We're not supposed to touch women. How could you carry her?" The first monk smiles and says, "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" And that's us, isn't it? Still carrying conversations from last year, still carrying guilt for things we've already apologized for, still carrying people in our hearts who left long ago. Letting go doesn't mean it didn't matter. It means it mattered enough for you to carry it, but not enough to carry it forever. Let me ask you this. What are you clinging to that's already let go of you? A person? An idea of who you thought you'd be by now? A version of life that no longer fits? Let me tell you what happens when we don't let go. The job keeps draining you. The relationship keeps breaking you. The past keeps haunting you. And you keep dragging it with you into your present, into your future, into every new opportunity. And eventually it breaks you down. You get so weighed down by what was that you never become who you could be. Here's the shift. Letting go isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily practice of choosing yourself over your patterns. It's recognizing when something is no longer adding to your life, and instead of forcing it, you release it with grace. You don't let go to forget. You let go to remember who you are without that weight. You don't let go because it didn't matter. You let go because you matter too. You don't let go because it's easy. You let go because holding on is harder than healing. Let me speak directly to your heart for a second. That person who ghosted you isn't confused. That relationship you keep watering isn't thirsty. That old version of yourself you keep trying to revive doesn't fit where you're going. Clinging to what's broken doesn't fix it. It just breaks you too. What you won't release will eventually release you. And sometimes, not gently, here's what science tells us. When we stay attached to emotional pain, the brain treats it like physical injury. Your body stores it, your nervous system remembers it, your energy drains from it. A 2016 neuroscience study showed that chronic rumination and emotional holding patterns light up the same areas of the brain as physical pain. You're not just emotionally drained, you're neurologically rewiring your brain to suffer. This isn't about being strong. This is about being smart with your energy, your attention, your future. And I want to offer you this practical step. Do it today. Write down one thing you're still clinging to. A person, a conversation, a fantasy, a regret. Now ask yourself this. What would it feel like to put this down even for just 1 hour? Not forever, not a big dramatic moment, just 1 hour of freedom. Close your eyes. Visualize yourself walking lighter, breathing deeper, smiling without the burden. That version of you exists, but only on the other side of release. You don't lose when you let go. You lose when you refuse to let go. You lose your peace. You lose your power. You lose your presence. Letting go is choosing to live untethered. So ask yourself right now, what have I been carrying for too long? A grudge that's aged into resentment, a memory that became your identity, a dream that's expired, but you still worship it. You're not here to carry it forever. You're here to learn, to evolve, to grow, to set it down and rise. When you release what's heavy, you create space for what's meant. Your peace doesn't come from rearranging the past. It comes from finally walking away from it. You don't have to chase closure. You just have to close the door. And when you do, you'll realize you were never stuck. You were just holding on too tightly to what was already gone. Let me ask you something real. When was the last time you were truly honest with the person who needed it the most? Not with your best friend, not in your group chat, not in your head while replaying fake conversations you wish you'd had. I'm talking about them, the person you're in relationship with, the person you're in conflict with, the person you're emotionally entangled with. Because here's the hard truth. Most of us talk about people more than we talk to them. And that's why nothing changes. You've done it. I've done it. We vent to a coworker instead of speaking up in the meeting. We complain to a friend about our partner but never express it to their face. We replay fights, craft perfect comebacks, but never actually initiate a conversation that could fix it. We talk in circles everywhere except the place that matters. And the result? We build resentment, not resolution. We create distance, not connection. We let misunderstanding grow roots. We've convinced ourselves that venting is healing, that gossip is insight, that complaining is clarity. But it's not. Talking about a person doesn't heal anything. Talking to them, that's where the healing begins. It's like trying to fix a leak in your house by explaining it to the neighbors. You can describe the drip all day long, but until you patch it up from the inside, it keeps flooding. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying don't seek support. I believe in therapy. I believe in wise counsel. I believe in friendships that hold you when you're breaking. But it's about proportion. If you spend 80% of your energy talking around the issue and only 20% actually addressing it with the person involved, you're not seeking resolution. You're avoiding it. And that avoidance is costing you more than you realize. Think about this. How many of your relationships have suffered not because of the actual issue, but because of the conversations that never happened? Silence becomes distance. Distance becomes assumption. Assumption becomes disconnection. And slowly, without any blow up or betrayal, the relationship just dies quietly in the background. Not from fire, from frost. Connection doesn't grow inside conversations. It grows in the uncomfortable, honest, present ones. So many people come to me and say, Jay, I just wish they understood me. And I ask, have you told them what's really going on? And they look at me silent because deep down, they're scared. Scared of being misunderstood. scared of confrontation, scared of losing someone. But here's the paradox. The more you avoid the conversation, the more you lose them anyway. Not in a dramatic way, but in slow, invisible ways, through all the things left unsaid. There's a Zen story I love. A man went from house to house complaining about a roof that kept leaking. One neighbor gave him tools, another gave him advice, a third gave him sympathy, but none of them could fix it. Finally, an old wise neighbor said, "Stop talking to us. Talk to your roof. Talk to your roof. Talk to the source." Here's the shift I want you to make. Talk about your relationship with the person you're in the relationship with, not with outsiders who weren't there, not with people who only see one side, not with folks who love you too much to tell you the hard truth. Talk to them, even if it's awkward, even if your voice shakes, even if it's messy, because you owe it to the connection. You owe it to the part of you that wants to grow, not stay stuck. You know what else happens when you always vent to others? You build emotional triangulation. Psychologists call this a pattern where you rope a third party into your conflict instead of dealing with it directly. It creates more drama, not less. It builds sides, not solutions. And it often makes the original problem even harder to solve. You create allies, not understanding. Here's what it looks like to have mature, transformative communication. You don't wait for things to explode. You don't weaponize silence. You don't build cases in your head. You say what you feel without blame. You express your needs without guilt. You listen without preparing your comeback. That's not weakness. That's leadership in your relationships. So let me ask you, what conversation are you avoiding right now? What truth is sitting in your throat? What misunderstanding are you letting grow because you're too afraid to face it? You think avoiding it is keeping the peace, but really, it's just delaying the breakdown. Today's habit is simple, but powerful. Identify one person you're in relationship with, romantic, professional, or personal, that you've been talking about, but not to. Then do these 3 things. Start with appreciation. Say one thing you value about the relationship. Share your vision. Express what you want from the connection, not just what's wrong. Speak your truth with kindness. Use phrases like, "I've been feeling, what I really need is, can we explore this together?" This doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. Remember this, talk to the person, not about the person. Speak truthfully, not just emotionally. Share to heal, not to vent. You don't build intimacy by keeping score. You build it by keeping conversations alive. You don't grow trust through gossip. You grow it through presence. You don't create love through avoidance. You create it through truth. So today, stop replaying it in your head. Stop rehearsing it with your friends. Stop postponing the one conversation that could change everything. Speak now with clarity, courage, and compassion, because you don't heal what you hide. You heal what you're willing to face. Here's a truth that will change the way you see people forever. You don't really know someone when they're smiling. You know them when they're stressed. You don't understand a person when life is easy. You understand them when life is breaking and they're trying to hold it together, because pressure doesn't just create cracks. It reveals what was always underneath. Let's be honest, we fall in love with people at their best. We meet them at a party, not in a panic. We meet them on vacation, not in grief. We meet them when they're winning, not when they're wounded. And in those moments, we say, they're amazing. They're so kind. They're so patient. But here's the wake-up call. Kindness is easy when there's no pressure. Patience is simple when things go your way. Gentleness is natural when you're not tested. It's not who people are when life is calm. It's who they become when the storm hits. Think back, when someone let you down, was it during a good time? Or was it when they were overwhelmed, exhausted, or angry? That's the moment their true character was revealed. Not because they're bad, but because stress doesn't lie. It strips away the performance. It pulls back the mask. It shows you who's doing the inner work and who's pretending. I want to challenge you today. Stop judging people solely by their highlights. Don't just ask, how do they treat me when everything's good? Ask, how do they treat everyone when things go bad? Watch them when the waiter gets the order wrong. Watch them when someone disagrees with them. Watch them when they're late, frustrated, or embarrassed. Because that's when you see it. Do they blame? Do they lash out? Do they become cold and silent? Or do they stay grounded, reflective, and calm? That's where real self-mastery is measured, not in peace, but in pressure. There's a quote I love from Wayne Dyer. He said, when you squeeze an orange, you get orange juice. It doesn't matter if it's Monday or Friday. If you squeeze it, orange juice comes out because that's what's inside. Now think about that in your own life. When you're under pressure, what comes out? Is it anxiety, anger, control, or is it presence, grace, resilience? Because pressure isn't just a test of others. It's a mirror for you too. I remember being in a relationship years ago where everything seemed amazing until something small would go wrong. A delayed message, a disagreement, a misstep. And suddenly I was met with rage, silence, manipulation. It was confusing because 90% of the time things were good. But the 10%, the stress moments showed the truth. And the longer I stayed, the more I realized I was ignoring the real data in favor of the ideal fantasy. Don't do that to yourself. You're not crazy for being cautious. You're not overreacting for noticing red flags under pressure. You're wise for paying attention when the mask slips. Let's look at what science says. A 2021 study from the University of Oregon found that our core personality traits are more consistently revealed under high-stress conditions than during normal, relaxed interactions. That means stress doesn't just make people act out, it exposes the blueprint of how they operate under threat. So the next time you're tempted to excuse bad behavior by saying, they were just stressed, take a breath and ask, is this who they become when things go wrong? Can I live with this version of them? Because that's who you're really building a life with, not their Instagram self. But let me also say this. This isn't about perfection. It's about patterns. Everyone snaps sometimes. Everyone gets overwhelmed. This isn't about judging someone for one bad day. It's about noticing when stress comes, do they grow or do they regress? Do they take ownership or shift blame? Do they communicate or shut down? You're not looking for someone flawless. You're looking for someone aware, someone who sees their stress and wants to do better, not just justify it. And what about you? When the pressure rises, what version of you shows up? Are you the warrior or the worrier? Do you take responsibility or do you deflect? Do you crumble or do you get curious? Here's the truth. Stress is life's way of training your character. Every inconvenience is an invitation. Every frustration is a fork in the road. You can choose reaction or you can choose reflection. You can yell or you can ask, why is this hitting me so hard? What wound is this poking? What story am I attaching to this moment? That's the difference between repeating the same cycle or finally breaking it. So here's your challenge today. Watch how people respond to small stress, not just big trauma. Take note of how they treat strangers, how they handle minor mistakes, how they respond when they're late or embarrassed, and do the same for yourself. Ask, when I'm under pressure, what kind of energy do I bring into the room? Because listen, we can't avoid stress, but we can transform who we become through it. Let me leave you with this. Anyone can be kind when they're comfortable. Anyone can be present when they're praised. Anyone can be loving when they're winning. But real love shows up when it's not easy. Real character shows up when there's nothing to gain. Real growth shows up when you're squeezed and you choose grace anyway. You are not defined by how you act when life is easy. You are revealed by how you respond when life is not. So the next time stress finds you, don't resist it. Use it as a mirror, as a lesson, as the moment you became more of who you truly are. Let me shake the illusion right now. Life doesn't give you what you deserve. Life gives you what you tolerate. It gives you what you accept. Silently, repeatedly, unconsciously. You could be kind, hardworking, generous, thoughtful, consistent, and still be overlooked because deserving more is not enough. You have to expect more. And most importantly, you have to enforce more. Let me ask you a tough question. What are you allowing that's costing you your peace? Think about it. That person who cancels on you last minute every single time, that friend who jokes at your expense and hides it behind just kidding, that job that keeps piling on responsibilities without recognition, you keep saying, I deserve better, but you keep accepting the same. So let me say this with love. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you're willing to stop allowing. We all grew up believing that being a good person is enough. That if you show up, work hard, do your best, people will notice, they'll treat you right, they'll reward you, they'll respect you. But that's not how the world works. People don't treat you the way you deserve to be treated. They treat you the way you let them. I had a friend once, brilliant, generous, selfless. He worked extra hours without being asked. He always helped people move, show up, fix things, listen. And yet he constantly felt used. He'd say, I don't get it. I do so much. I give so much. Why don't people value me the way I value them? And I had to tell him the truth. Because you taught them you don't need to be valued. You taught them you'll keep showing up no matter what. You gave them access without boundaries. And now they think your energy is free. He wasn't being punished for being kind. He was being punished for being boundaryless. Here's what you have to understand. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors with locks and you hold the key. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. It makes you self-respecting. It tells the world, I don't abandon myself to keep you comfortable. Because when you don't set the standard, someone else will, and it usually benefits them, not you. There's a quote I love, you don't rise by hoping, you rise by refusing to shrink. Think about that. How many times have you shrunk yourself in a relationship to keep the peace? How many times have you swallowed your voice in a meeting to avoid conflict? How many times have you overextended yourself just to keep someone else happy? And what did it cost you? Your sleep, your self-worth, your sense of peace. We tell ourselves, it's not a big deal. I'll speak up next time. Maybe they didn't mean it. But every time you tolerate the disrespect, the delay, the dismissal, you reinforce the idea that this is okay. Let me be clear. Being patient doesn't mean being passive. Being forgiving doesn't mean being a doormat. Being kind doesn't mean being quiet when your boundaries are being violated. There is no prize for suffering in silence. You have to become the guardian of your own worth. No one else can do that for you. Not your boss, not your partner, not your parents, not your therapist, not your coach. They can support you, but only you can enforce it. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you reinforce, and what you tolerate. Let me share something powerful from research. A 2021 study from the American Psychological Association found that people who consistently tolerated minor boundary violations, things like sarcasm, being talked over, guilt-tripped, were 62% more likely to end up in emotionally draining relationships. Not from huge betrayals, but from small, constant boundary erosion, the slow burn, the tiny leaks that eventually drain the whole system. So don't wait for it to explode. Recognize it when it drips. Now, you may be thinking, okay, Jay, I get it, but how do I actually start setting boundaries? Here's your practice for today. Think of one behavior you've been silently tolerating. Maybe it's someone speaking to you with sarcasm, a friend who never shows up on time, a colleague who takes credit for your work. Now, instead of attacking them, create a boundary with yourself. That's the key most people miss. A boundary is not a demand for someone else to change. It's a decision for how you will respond when they don't. For example, if they cancel on me last minute again, I won't rearrange my plans for them. If they speak to me that way again, I'll pause the conversation and revisit it later or not at all. If they ask for a favor without acknowledging my last one, I'll kindly say no this time. Boundaries are self-discipline in action. Let me give you a story to hold on to. There's a farmer who lives in a valley. Every year, storms come and wash away part of his land. One year, instead of praying the storm wouldn't come, he builds a wall. The storm still comes, but this time, he's ready. In life, you don't always get to control the storm, but you do get to control what you allow into your field. Your peace is your soil. Your energy is your crop. Protect it with the strength of your standards. So the next time you catch yourself saying, I deserve better, ask yourself, have I made that clear? Have I enforced that with action? Have I walked away from what insults my worth? Because hoping won't raise your value. Holding your line will. You don't need louder demands. You need clear boundaries. Let me leave you with this. Deserve is a feeling. Accept is a standard. A deserve is what you believe. Accept is what you enforce. Deserve is in your mind. Accept is in your life. So stop waiting for someone to hand you what you think you're owed. Start living like someone who knows what they're worth and refuses to accept anything less. Let's be honest. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you they could manipulate, the one who didn't set boundaries, the one who was available 24/7, the one who said yes, even when it drained them. What they miss isn't your soul. It's your silence, your compliance, your convenience. Because when you start growing, the people who benefited from your smallness will start mourning. But they're not mourning you. They're mourning the version of you that made their life easier, not necessarily better. Ever had someone say, you were changed. You're not who you used to be. Used to be fun, easy, always there. And you feel this wave of guilt, like somehow becoming more of yourself is a betrayal. Like setting boundaries is being cold. Like choosing yourself is selfish. But here's the truth. Most people can't admit they loved the old you because the old you didn't love you yet. The old you put everyone else first, said yes to things they hated, was afraid of disappointing anyone, tolerated disrespect to avoid confrontation, needed validation to feel worthy. That version was comfortable for them, but costly for you. And the moment you started healing, the moment you started honoring your energy, your time, your values, suddenly people started pulling away. Not because you did something wrong, but because you stopped doing everything for them. Here's what you need to remember. Some people don't actually want to heal you because the healed you has standards. The healed you has boundaries. The healed you has clarity. And clarity threatens their control. When you evolve, you mess up the roles they assign to you. You were the people pleaser. You were the quiet one. You were the fixer. You were the one who always made time. But the new you doesn't play those parts anymore. And they don't know how to relate to someone who doesn't shrink for their comfort. I remember when I began to grow emotionally, when I started saying no, when I created space, when I stopped replying to texts the second they came in. Some people didn't like that. And at first I felt guilty. I questioned myself. I thought I was being distant or selfish. But I realized something powerful. The people who truly love you celebrate your growth even when it inconveniences them. The ones who don't, they only loved your accessibility, not your authenticity. Let me say this directly to your heart. You are allowed to outgrow relationships that require you to stay wounded. You are allowed to evolve beyond roles you were forced into. You are allowed to redefine what loyalty means, because loyalty is not staying stuck. Loyalty is not sacrificing your healing. Loyalty is not holding yourself back to keep others comfortable. Loyalty to yourself must come first. You ever notice this pattern? When you were struggling, they were always around. But when you started getting better, more focused, more intentional, they started falling off. Why? Because your healing removed their access. And their connection to you was based on your need, not mutual respect. They loved you when you were available, not aligned. They showed up when you were broken, not becoming. And that's the test. Not who claps when you cry, but who claps when you rise. A 2022 behavioral psychology study found that over 50% of people feel threatened when someone in their close circle begins to level up, even if they don't consciously realize it. Why? Because growth is a mirror. It reflects back to others where they're not evolving. When you begin to shine, you highlight their shadows. When you begin to move, you reveal their stagnancy. When you begin to choose better, you challenge their comfort. And not everyone's ready for that reflection. But here's the shift I want you to make today. Stop trying to keep old connections alive at the cost of your new identity. Some people only knew the version of you that was easy to manipulate, the one who didn't ask questions, the one who didn't have boundaries, the one who would rather betray themselves than disappoint others. That version of you is gone. And it's okay to grieve that, not because it was right, but because you survived it. But you don't owe anyone an explanation for your evolution. You don't have to shrink back just because your light makes others squint. Let me give you today's habit, a practice for power. Write down one way you've grown in the past 12 months. Maybe you've set clear boundaries, started therapy, left a toxic job or relationship, prioritized your peace, said no more, said yes to your dreams. Now do this. Celebrate it, privately if needed, proudly if you're ready. But whatever you do, don't apologize for it. You earned that growth. You fought for that version of you. You bled through old identities to become someone stronger. Own it, without guilt. Here's your reminder. You're not too much. You've just become enough. You're not selfish. You've just stopped being self-sacrificing. You're not different. You've just finally become who you were always meant to be. And yes, it will scare some people. Let it. If someone says, you've changed, say, I worked hard to. If someone says, I miss the old you, say, she was beautiful but broken. I'm not her anymore. Because healing is not about going back. It's about rising forward. So today, walk proudly in your transformation. Not everyone will understand. Not everyone will clap. Not everyone will stay. But the people who are meant for your next level will never ask you to shrink back to your last one. Let's stop pretending. When someone says, I'm just bad at texting, what they really mean is, you're not my priority. We've all heard it. The half-truths, the soft letdowns, the vague maybes, the excuses that sound gentle but cut deep. And for too long, we've believed them. We've waited. We've rationalized. We've made excuses for their excuses. But it's time to wake up to the reality. Excuses are translations. And if you listen closely, they tell you everything you need to know. You see, people rarely say what they mean directly, especially when they don't want to be the villain in your story. So they soften their withdrawal with phrases like, I'm just really busy. I've got a lot going on. I'm not ready for anything serious. I'm confused about what I want. But underneath those words are very clear messages. You're not the priority I want to make time for. This connection doesn't mean enough to commit to. I'm keeping my options open and you're just one of them. It's not cruel. It's just the unspoken truth. And here's what I want you to realize. Excuses aren't random. They're rehearsed. People use them because they work. They keep you hooked. Just enough hope, but not enough honesty. And as long as you keep accepting them, you'll keep getting breadcrumbs. And the worst part, you'll blame yourself for being starving. When all they offered was crumbs from the beginning, there's this phrase I hear a lot. I'm just focusing on myself right now. And that sounds noble, right? But if someone is focusing on themselves while still texting you inconsistently, flirting just enough to keep your attention, but never making real effort, they're not healing. They're hedging. They're not growing. They're ghosting with grace. They don't want to cut ties because they want to keep their options open and you're one of them. I know it hurts. I know it's easier to believe they're confused than to accept they've chosen not to choose you. But here's the truth that sets you free. Confusion is clarity in disguise. When someone keeps not knowing what they want, that is their decision. Indecision is a decision. Silence is a statement. Inconsistency is rejection. dressed up as possibility. You deserve effort, not excuse. Consistency, not confusion. Presence, not promises. You don't have to decode messages. You don't have to analyze their tone. You don't have to wait until they figure it out. Because the people who want you make it clear with actions, with effort, with consistency. There's a research study from the Pew Research Center that showed 89% of people aged 18-49 check their phones multiple times per hour. So let's stop pretending they forgot to text back. They saw it. They made a choice. And now you need to make yours. Because every time you wait for their reply, you're putting your peace on pause. You're hanging your worth on someone else's attention span. And that's not where your value belongs. Let's flip the lens. How many times have you chased someone's potential, not their pattern? You held on because you saw who they could be. You stayed because of what they said they wanted. You forgave because they said they'd change. But what they do has never matched what they promised. And that's the rule I want you to live by from now on. Believe patterns, not promises. Because promises are easy. Patterns are earned. And let's be clear, this isn't about becoming cold or closed off. This is about becoming clear. This is about choosing clarity over chaos, truth over tolerance, peace over potential. I want you to try this habit today, one that will change the way you give your energy. Make a list of the people you feel emotionally drained by. Then ask, do they reach out only when they need something? Do they disappear and return like nothing happened? Do they say one thing but consistently do another? Do they leave you feeling confused more often than clear? If the answer is yes, more than no, then it's time to stop giving your peace to people who only show up when it's convenient. Your attention is sacred. Your time is expensive. And your energy is not up for auction. You don't have to beg for someone to show up. You don't have to chase clarity that should be offered freely. You don't have to accept half effort when your whole heart is on the line. What they're saying with their actions is the truth, even if they can't say it with their words. And once you accept that, you take your power back. Let me leave you with this. I'm bad at communication equals you're not worth the effort. I'm not ready for a relationship equals just not with you. I need space equals I don't want your closeness. I'm just not sure right now equals I am sure I just don't want to hurt you. It's not always personal, but it is real. So stop translating silence into hope. Stop letting confusion feel like connection. Stop letting mixed signals become your emotional diet. You deserve certainty. You deserve emotional safety. You deserve to be loved without decoding the fine print. Their excuses will always reveal their truth. Now the question is, what truth are you willing to finally accept and walk away from? Because healing begins not when you're chosen, but when you finally choose yourself.